I so wish I could be with you at Wild 11 in India. This is such a critical point in time for the wild everywhere. I have a special message that I hope can help shape your deliberations during the next few days, and that is to recognize that life in the ocean, creatures who live there, they are wildlife too. I gave a talk years ago in the United States to the Fish and Wildlife Service and suggested that perhaps they should think about changing their name. They should just call it the Wildlife Service, because what about fish in the ocean? What about them? They're wild too. We kind of get it with respect to our fellow mammals. Whales, we understand, are wild. And we have, over the years, it took us a long time to think of whales the way we've come to think of wildlife on the land, like elephants and rhinoceroses, birds and such. For a while, they were just products the way fish are now just products to many. But we have to change our thinking about ocean wildlife. We measured whales not as individuals, but by the ton. The ton. How many tons of whales could be taken? And we allocated allotments to those who were taking whales. So many tons were allowable. Well, now we look at whales very differently. They are animals with social structure, with language, with values that transcend pounds of meat and barrels of oil. When are we going to somehow come to the realization that tuna, swordfish, whatever it is that lives in the sea, even the little fish, they all are individuals. They all have faces, they all have personalities, they all have their unique DNA, just the way you and I and elephants and chimpanzees and all other forms of life. We are all individuals, but we treat ocean wildlife differently. Fish, it's okay to kill them wantonly, extravagantly, to think of them as creatures that feel no pain. So it's all right to treat them without the kind of respect we have begun to accord other forms of life on Earth. We catch them and cram them into nets. We let them hang on hooks, dangling in the ocean, and not really feeling compassion for them the way we do for many other forms of life, those that we've gotten to know personally on the land. Now, of course, as animals, we have to eat something. We don't photosynthesize. But increasingly, we're looking at alternatives to taking animals as a source of food, both from the land and from the sea. But there are a lot of individuals who regard themselves as plant eaters. They're vegetarians, but they will eat fish, as if it's okay to eat fish, but they never eat a cow. What is it? How can all of us together look at the ocean and creatures who live there with greater respect? People will continue to take wildlife from the sea as a source of food, as a source of commodities to be ground up and used in various commercial ways for oils, for fertilizer, or whatever. But perhaps we will over time, and maybe Wild 11 is a turning point where discussions about the importance of birds, of lizards, of frogs, of insects, of all of life that we know and respect on the land, we can take that same maturity of attitude and respect and apply it to the ocean. Think of fish as the birds of the sea. Think of our fellow mammals in the sea. Think of all of life on Earth as critical to shaping the nature of this planet in ways that make Earth hospitable for us, one species that has a magnified impact on all of the rest of life on Earth, but especially life in the ocean, because that's where most of life on Earth actually exists. It's where most of the water is. All life requires water. And most of life on Earth, wildlife, down there in the ocean, living mostly in the dark, mostly below where light penetrates. Wildlife, little fish, small red shrimp, beautiful diaphanous rainbow jellies. These are the creatures, by and large, shape the chemistry of the planet. The phytoplankton in the ocean that over hundreds of millions of years captured carbon, generated oxygen, created an atmosphere that is hospitable for creatures, large creatures, such as us, but all the rest of life on Earth as well, the animals dependent on phytoplankton in the sea, and now photosynthetic organisms on the land as well. But it's still the ocean that continues to capture carbon, generate oxygen, provide food, shaping the chemistry of the ocean. The ocean is not just rocks and water. The ocean, of course, is alive. The diversity of life in the sea is immensely greater if you take the major divisions of animal life and photosynthetic life and bacteria and archaea. The action is mostly out there in the ocean. Life is mostly in the blue part of the planet, and we have neglected understanding what's going on out there. We've only seen about 10% of the ocean. We've only mapped about 10% of the ocean floor. This is our opportunity. 2020, Wild 11, this moment in time. We can take the many things we've learned about what we need to do to protect the diversity of wildlife on the land and remember that most of wildlife is still being treated the way we used to treat wildlife on the land, as commodities, as something incidental to our existence. No, it's not incidental, it's fundamental. On the land and in the sea, we are a part of nature, not apart from it. And understanding that our time right now, armed with knowledge that could not exist 50 years ago, must be deployed in ways now so that in another 50 years, or 500, or 5,000 years, we can look back at this as a turning point to respect the role of wildlife on the land and in the sea, shaping climate, shaping weather, holding the world together, a safe haven in a universe of hostile places. Taking care of the wild means taking care of wild humans, too. Thank you for what you're doing at Wild 11. I really salute you for using your mighty powers, your superpowers of understanding what we must do now, as never before we have a chance, perhaps as never again, to get it right. Thank you.